I-80 Club, Wednesday night in the club.
In the club.
Josh and Jack with you. If you are watching live, if you're listening or watching before Friday, you're a patron, and we very, very much appreciate your patronage. If you're listening after the fact, we would love to have you join us at patreon.com/I80 Club. Certainly, you could, at the very least, Jack, like and subscribe to the YouTube page because in the coming weeks, we have so much content that is continuing to drop at youtube.com/@I80 Club. It will be glorious.
There you go. Yeah, and it's free of charge. All you get is the subscription and the notifications when we're going live. And the fact, Josh, we're just going live more often, and it's varied times with our +1s, with our new Nebraska after Nebraska ball, which is going to be kind of at different times depending on when the game is, depending on when the game ends. So if you haven't already liked and subscribed on YouTube, please do that. If you like our content, it helps us out too. So we would love for that to happen.
Yeah. Speaking of the after Nebraska basketball schedule, there it is. Though actually that has the wrong game at the very end, Jack, doesn't it? Because it's the Indiana game. But look at that. In all its glory, five games are correct on there. One of them will be fixed. I just have the wrong graphic uploaded right now. This is incredible. I cannot wait to see what you and Caleb and Jacob put together over the next few months, going on into the winter and the cold and the darkness and the snow. It's going to be glorious.
It should be fun. We are kind of going to see how it goes too. But for those who haven't heard, we'll be starting for those games kind of during the first semester. There may be one more game in there too. But we'll be starting about 15 minutes after the game ends. We're going to let people who are listening to the radio broadcast finish up in the interview with Fred after the game. We'll start after that, roughly. And then probably go about a half hour, and we'll have Bigelow, Caleb. They'll be live at Pinnacle Bank Arena when the game's at PBA. Bigelow's going to also be in Sioux Falls, and he's going to be in Omaha for those games. I'll probably be here most of the time, and we'll break down the game. We'll get the latest from it. We'll let you react if you're a patron. Another good reason to be a patron, Josh, because we'll only be taking feedback and interaction from patrons during the after Nebraska ball show.
Yeah, exactly. So as always, if you want to comment during podcasts, whether it's the post-game shows that we do, whether they're public or not, that is the way to do it. Mickey writes on the Discord, never forget Jack's post-game show after the Creighton blowout in 2018. Did you do that on a Twitter Spaces? Is that what you did back then?
No, that might have been when I did. No. We tried one on KLIN for a year.
Oh,
that might be what he's talking about.
Yeah,
it was called Nebraska Ball After Dark.
That's awesome.
It was called. We did it for an entire year, and it was terrible. It was a bad.
Well, because that's the season that went to shit, right? Like where it was a lot. It was full of promise. Shit. Yeah.
It was Tim Miles last year, right? Yeah.
It was Tim Miles' last year.
It was Tim Miles last year.
Yeah.
It was rough. It was very rough. And then the payoff came later during that year, during the Big Ten tournament a little bit.
Yeah, when you were there with Johnny.
Yeah, when I was actually there. Yeah, I'm super excited about it. I have no idea what to expect for this team. I'm just kind of starting to dig into them a little bit, Josh. And I wasn't able to go to the scrimmage event. I obviously didn't see the secret scrimmage. Bigelow's had some information. If you're on our Discord, Bigelow's had some good info about that he shared. But I plan to go to the preseason game, or at least watch the exhibition game. And I'm doing some reading up, trying to kind of understand. But we're going to kind of learn about this team together and figure out, I have no idea what to expect from them. If it's going to be a lot worse, about the same, or way better. It's just the only thing I know is it's going to be super different. And Nebraska has kind of, the weird thing about it, Josh, and we won't go too long on Nebraska basketball tonight, but the weird thing is that Nebraska basketball this year with the roster seems to have at least addressed some of the long-standing deficiencies in their roster construction this year in a way that they haven't in a lot of other years, weirdly enough. Where you've got point guard, multiple point guards. You've got shooter, multiple shooters, right? And you got big men. You've got the pieces. It's just how good are they, right? But in so many other years, you haven't even had the pieces for this team. And there's a lot of guys that we just, that have a little bit of a record at different places. And we can you build a team via transfers like this? I'm really excited to see it. I don't know what to expect this year, so we'll all kind of go through it together with that. And Caleb and I will break it down for the first time November 1st on the Nebraska Ball Brunch Show. So it'll be the Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, Halloween. And so a week from the day after tomorrow, I guess.
Dude, I was gonna say, yeah, we're a week from all of this stuff starting, and so a little bit putting a bow on the kind of the house cleaning stuff. We have that coming up. We have Kent Pavelka coming up next week for a +1, and then the post-game show will begin 12 days from today after that first regular season game. And if you missed it, we had Dougley Maurice on the pod last night. That is available in your YouTube.
Listen to that if you have not.
It's so
I know
fun.
I get it. Like some of the +1s, you're just like, okay, this is probably not, or the Ohio State game is going to be over. This isn't going to be relevant. I'm telling you, I was fine doing the interview. It exceeded my expectations, Josh. Doug exceeded my expectations in every way possible. After the show was over, I said to Josh, I was like, I don't know how that guy doesn't have a national radio show.
Yeah, he's awesome.
I don't know, frustrated is a word. I'm jealous because he's a writer. He is a writer, but man, he is so good. Like so good. And that podcast, he just performed for an hour. He legit performed. Josh and I asked questions, and then he just took it, performed, and he entertained. So I'm telling you, like, if you're at all a college football fan, I think you're gonna, or kind of at least jaded a little bit by the proclivity of the college football world to focus on the South, you will love that interview.
Yeah.
So, and I know a lot of you were there, but
definitely check it out. By the way, Jack, I don't know if you see anything in the private chat, but the burpiness is going on. So maybe hopping out of the entire browser and hopping back in with some of the stuff that you're dealing with, maybe would fix it a little bit.
Got it. I'll be right back.
Yeah. So Jack will hop back in a moment. There's some technical issues in terms of what's going on with him and in terms of what computer he's using tonight. So many people are pointing out that I keep saying house cleaning instead of housekeeping. D'Lo says, Josh saying house cleaning instead of housekeeping will never not be funny. Keena says, I was at an event yesterday that started with some housekeeping items, and my brain immediately went to, wow, she didn't say house cleaning. Now I'm so caught in my own head that I don't even know what to say anymore. Housekeeping. I have to make sure that I do that. Housekeeping. And then D'Lo, it's a mute point. Yeah, it's a moot point. D'Lo also adds, last night was great, and about Doug, he found a niche. Yeah, he definitely has, man. What he is doing on that podcast is I said it at the start of the interview. It's the podcast I didn't know I needed with college football. And so it has been so much fun to listen to. He had Godfrey on today, and Godfrey is one of my favorite personalities that covers college football. Godfrey was on mainly previewing the Boise State UNLV game, but it was almost less of a preview, and it was more of a kind of like big picture look at the G5 and getting into the CFP and what's at stake and could they win as a 12 seed over a 5 seed. And so that was really, really good. And so I know that we have been, basically talking about it since the season began. But I really could not recommend it highly enough. Jack was just talking more about KOTN. D'Lo says 1 billion college football pods and he finds a new approach. That is a great way to describe it because there are a lot of them, and honestly, this season, a few of my old standbys have gone by the wayside, mainly because of the tonnage of KOTN. But like you said it a couple minutes ago, the way in which he is like entertaining and kind of like performing, I find myself gravitating towards him and what him and Landis are doing because it's obvious how much he is engaging with a very particular part of the sport and with the teams and with the fan bases that I don't really know if we see from some of the traditional national pods.
Yeah. And he's a character, he's funny.
Yeah.
He's really funny. So yeah,
100%.
It was good. Check it out. Listen, support them. We support independent college football media. So that's kind of what we are right now.
Yeah, indeed.
Yep.
Well, shall we? We have 1 billion topics to dive into. Many of them we have been discussing inside of the I-80 Club in our various servers the various channels over the last few days. I cede the floor to you, Jack. Where do you want to begin in terms of conversing about Nebraska and the fallout from the loss to Indiana?
Do you feel maybe I have a different perspective than you do, but do you feel like the Satterfield thing has like engulfed everything right now, or do you not feel that way?
Engulfed. I don't know. Like John and I didn't even talk about him today.
You didn't? Okay.
No. Yeah, we didn't even talk about him today.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
that's interesting. And so maybe it's my own perception. That's why I asked you the question.
Yeah.
Like it because it feels to me like it has completely so what else are you talking about then? I guess I'm curious. What else is when it comes to Nebraska this week, last game, this game, those sorts of things? Like, what else is out there right now? What are you talking about? What are the vibes?
Well, today we actually spent a lot of time talking about Dylan Raiola being injured and how that is going to affect the offense. So
you're talking about it on the air now.
I reported it. Whatever I do, I reported it on Monday. So we've been John and I have been talking about it openly all week long.
Okay.
Well, then which
I agree. It's an obvious topic if you're talking about it.
Yeah, we discussed it a little bit more in depth today of like what should it mean for the offense and what should they do and should we see more Heinrich Haarberg?
Love that topic.
Yeah. Satterfield definitely dominated the discourse the first 2 days of the week. And there's an interesting comment from Matt. He says people want to sacrifice. How it's not Foley blows my mind. I think Foley has been like the boogeyman for this season, but and part of it was happenstance, wasn't it, Jack? That like special teams really wasn't involved that much on Saturday, even though like they step out of bounds on the first kick return, and there were all the drops on the other kickoff returns, but because they never kicked a field goal, the punts were fine. Like it just kind of has taken a back seat to.
There was no technically catastrophic special teams play, which is actually a step in the right direction.
Which is wild that you just said that there was no catastrophic special teams play when a guy caught a kickoff and stepped out.
That wasn't catastrophic in that they could recover from it, right, by getting a first down and punting it out, i.e. it didn't give the other team either a score or the ball within the 20-yard line, right?
Yeah.
Let's say we may need to describe, sadly enough, we may need to have a working definition of what a catastrophic special teams play is for this year. So we know whether or not that I would not describe that as catastrophic. The
performance against Rutgers was definitely catastrophic.
It was not good.
Right?
It was just an improvement. And everyone is so reactive to the previous game, right?
Yes.
And so, I mean, like I think I said this on Saturday's show. Like, I mean, arguably it was the best unit of the three in the game.
Yeah, I would argue that it was, and I know that people would say like none of them were good, but
none of them were good. No, I say that tongue in cheek. I 100% say that tongue in cheek. So I think that's part of it, and I think maybe people, I don't know. Do you think people assume already that the special, like they've already hit a point of no return with special teams and having to make a change? Maybe
100%.
And there's a concern that it won't happen with offense.
Yes, I was having a conversation with multiple people during the show today, during a commercial break that were pretty plugged in, and they were both saying like, so here's a game that I know that you won't like because you just don't like this stuff. But I said over under 3.5 coaches that are on the coaching staff right now that will not be on the coaching staff next year. And both people basically were like, okay, both people were like, that's a great number because it is probably in that range of it could be 3.5. So yeah.
Yeah, see, I feel like maybe they'll get Foley. They'll keep him there somehow.
He will be on the staff as a liaison. He will not be coaching special teams anymore.
Yes.
He will not be a full-time special team.
Do you count that in your 3.5 or not?
Yes. If he gets reassigned and is not coaching
so you mean just people not in their positions. That's correct. The 3.5.
Yeah. It doesn't have to totally be fired. It could be moving on. It could be whatever.
Yeah, I'd take the over on that because I think there's a chance your defensive coordinator leaves. Like, yeah, I'll take the over on 3.5.
And Dick Fight, again, he not on the staff as an outside of the program. Okay, so the way I'll describe it is they are no longer in the role that they are now, / they are fired, / they move on, / they are not a full-time coach. And I know that is like a million slashes, but basically...
It's just they're not what they're doing now.
Yes.
That's it, right?
If Ed Foley is on the staff and he is doing something else and he is not a special teams coordinator... I think that okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, so they're not doing what they're doing now. I'll take the over.
Okay.
Like, I don't mind, Josh, just to let me clarify just for a moment, because like, whatever, talking about that now, guessing, speculating about that is fine. What I don't understand is the constant in the middle of the season making the case, the like prosecuting prosecute whether it's Satterfield or whomever else in the middle of the season against like I don't know who you're making the case to that so many people seem to be doing right now. My position is you may very well be right if you're saying Satterfield is failed or Satterfield should move on or whatever it is, but it's like let me see the rest of the season, I guess is what I want to say, and then make that judgment. And it may turn out that you're right. I just the conversation, yeah, a little bit of it, I guess, is fine, Josh. But man, it has felt like, and that's why I asked you that question to start. Like to me, it feels like that has been so much of the conversation right now, and it probably goes to the fact that he made that comment in the press conference, right? And that kind of rejuvenated what was already going on. But I'm just like, who are we making this argument to all of the time that so many people seem to be making all of the time, right? Is there, maybe it's like this concern at the end of the year that they're not going to make the change.
I think that's, yes.
Is that what it is?
In terms of like, are you saying like me hopping on and saying like they should fire Satterfield after the season? Is it like, who am I speaking to when I say that?
Like,
or
like if people are already saying like, he's terrible, he's got to go, all of these things that is just so much, halfway through the season, and we're just freaking harping on that. And and like part of me thinks it's kind of going to work out, right? It's kind of going to work out one way or the other. If he has a really solid second half of the season, maybe he does stay around. If what we've seen the last couple of games continues, I think it's probably going to, like, I'm not too worried that it's not going to work out one way or the other, that the results aren't going to dictate the decision at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Right now. But maybe that's different. Maybe that's why so many people are just paranoid that they're going to keep him on forever and he's bad. Like,
well, yes,
I don't know.
I think you're hitting on something, because one of the things that I have heard a lot, and this is not now sources, this is like listeners and fans in general, is I think there's a fear. Jack, how many times have you heard the buddies? He hired his buddies. He's like former coaches who hired his buddies.
I feel like we've heard that with every coach.
And that's the point. So I think that there are a lot of people that are afraid that once again, and like, I think the buddies conversation is very overblown. You hire people that like that's life, right? Like if I'm starting a radio station, you know who I'm hiring? I'm probably hiring you. I'm hiring John Bishop. I'm hiring people that I know, my buddies, because I know you. So I think that conversation is overblown, but I will meet those people halfway and say there have been coaches who quote unquote hired their buddies and then didn't move on from them. And I think that what people are afraid of here, and this is where I will disagree with them, because I think Matt Rule
done that. Yeah, I guess that's my question. Has Rule shown a proclivity to that?
He fired his best personnel guy in July. Now, there's a lot
of still defending him on Twitter, as we pointed out.
Yeah, there's a lot that went into that, right? It's not just like the guy was underperforming. There's more, obviously, personal stuff that went into that. But so I disagree. And so I was talking with a source of mine yesterday who said this was about Foley. He said, I think that he'll slide into an Ennis role. He'll do whatever. He said the rest of the season will tell us on Satterfield. If they don't improve, I'm confident Rule will move on. I think Matt Rule is a serious coach. I think Matt Rule is a serious 100%. Person. I have no doubt. But, I do think that I can still come on and say, like, they should fire him, because I still believe that. Like, I can't wait because I have to talk,
dude,
so.
Dude, yeah, right. Like, say what you want to say. I'm just saying I'm bored with that conversation right now. It's uninteresting to me at this point.
Why do you think that is? Why is it? Is it just TBD. Because you have to let it play out?
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm a person, and look, I think the last two games have been rough for him. But beyond that, I mean, I wouldn't say that the entire season. It's been 2 games, right? While I have criticism for those 2 games for the way he did it, and I don't as much for the Purdue game, to be honest, as I do the Rutgers.
They moved the ball against Purdue. They
moved the ball. I think there were penalties. There were some weird things going on. But like those 2, so like I don't think he's past a point of no return in looking good this season. But Josh, you got to remember, there's a whole bunch of people who came into this season that were already dead set against this dude.
Me, I am. But Jack,
from last year.
No, it goes back to South Carolina.
Either.
Yeah.
Maybe it was last year, maybe it was South Carolina for whatever reason. So I think that's why there's a quick trigger on the last 2 games.
Yeah, Jordan says 2 full games and at least half of all others. Travis says, Jack also thought original staff hires were boring convos. Let's talk about the players. You're definitely not a assistant coach guy. Of all of my friends.
Because I can't see that. Like, I can't use my eyes, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I can use my eyes and I can tell you which player is performing better than another. It's harder for me to figure out what percentage of that is the coach and what percentage of the player. It's just easy. And I'm not, if I were a huge X's and O's guys, Josh, I might be able to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
See,
I might be able to do that.
I will lean on those people. You know, one of the folks that has been going hard in the paint recently, and since he was hired, was Michael. Michael is one of the best X's, Michael Severe, one of the best X's and O's guys, you know, in my life. And I know I've said this in here and I've said it on my radio show a lot. I am someone who is very concerned when a fan base is like, thank God, take him away from us. And that's how South Carolina fans reacted to him. I talked about before the season, Todd Furman and Payne Insider, when they were doing their Big Ten preview podcast back in July, they were like, we are going to give Satterfield like one more chance. We're gonna wipe the slate clean with him, but we don't believe in him as a play caller and a play designer and all of those things. So like all of these smart people that I have paid attention to, and then you look at the raw numbers, he has very much struggled at every stop. So like, I can't speak to the heart of everybody, right? I don't know how much of it for a lot of people is 2 weeks. I don't know how much of it is his quote yesterday. I don't know how much of it is last year. For me, it is everything. And I've never been a big fan, but I think you and I had very constructive conversations about his offense this year, even as they got off to a good start, but then they would have a half without scoring, all of these things. I was trying to give him grace, but, you know, I do think lately he has kind of passed that point of no return. You know, if
I guess that's the question.
If the program's going to get serious again.
Yeah, maybe. And to me, I like to leave open the fact that I am a big, huge believer. And I've said it a million times this year, and I've been more convinced of it this year than ever, that just when you think you know something about any part of a college football team, you end up being wrong. Yeah. I mean, I am a huge believer, and I just see it every freaking Saturday. And so I'm at least leaving open the possibility that things really change at the end of the year. And if they don't, and you make the right decision associated with that. And I'll tell you what I think it is. But Josh, the reason I'm not those X's. I'm not Damon. I'm not Michael. I'm a different type than all of those guys. And I think that's why people listen to me, you know, sometimes. And what?
No, I just loved your delivery. That's why people listen to me sometimes.
Sometimes. I mean, they all like that, but I'm bringing
we all have our own needs.
I'm bringing a different perspective.
I'm not Damon. You're not Damon, and for the better and for the worse.
Yeah, like I'm not an X, and so I don't. And you're right that I feel more confident talking about players and evaluating players than I do coaches.
Yeah.
And I think that's because I'm not those guys. I think those guys can probably do that better than I can. And I get it. If all the people you trust say he sucks, I understand why you start to buy into the fact that he just sucks and that's what it is. But like, I don't have that with myself. And I'm seeing so many other things, like so many freaking other things. Again, the Indiana thing, there is nothing that went right. There is nothing that went right. It was, the offensive scheme, the play calling, whatever it is, the coaching. There are so many things, though, that went wrong that I want to see. I want to see what happens in the coming years. And the other thing is, Josh, and this, you're right. This is kind of a romanticism of being a fan, is that I don't want to punt on 1/3 of my team, more than 1/3 of my team, with almost half the season left.
You're talking about like literally punting on the offense?
Yep. Yeah. Like just saying, nope. It's not going to be good. It's not going to be good. Like, I'm not ready to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. So there's a portion of all those things. I think there's some reasonableness in what I'm saying in the reality of college football and things changing every week, and fans are freaking fickle. But I also think there's a little bit of just passion in me that is saying, look, I want to leave myself some hope. I want to leave myself some hope. And I don't want to cheer for a personnel move over a team. I despise that.
Well, I'm not cheering for.
I'm not saying you are.
I know there's a lot. I feel like, and you've mentioned it before. That I feel like there's a ton of PTSD with Bo, with you, and how you wanted him to get fired, and how that affected your fandom, right?
Yeah. I admitted it. I think when we were talking in the channel, like,
yeah,
I at the
so
end
let me
of
ask you this, because I've never asked you this. How did that affect you in how you watched the games and how you rooted for that? Because, like, what are you worried that if you're like, you're right, Satterfield sucks, he needs to go.
Well,
how did that affect you with
First
Bo?
of all, it was a completely different thing. It was not about a level of incompetency with X's and O's.
Correct. It was because he was a piece of garbage.
It was because I didn't like how he did his business, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was like I hated the feeling. I despised that feeling. I felt guilty a little bit, right? I felt like I went back on being a fan, but I was so torn on that whole thing. But my bigger point, Josh, I don't know how much that plays into it. I legit do think that I try and push back on people who are almost as passionate, if not more passionate, about being right, about their premonitions, their proclamations about Nebraska football than they are about Nebraska football winning. That it's a pet peeve of mine. It is a huge pet peeve of mine, and so I push back on it.
See, but I don't feel like that's happening.
You don't think people do that?
No, I do. No, of course they do. Of course.
Okay.
And look,
Okay.
I'm Josh Peterson, and I covered Scott Frost. I heard that criticism, every week for 4 years.
Right. So I think by nature, so whether it's happening with Satterfield or not, I mean, I'm saying maybe that I do it. I don't do it with precision, right? But I think that's my gut reaction to these things.
So what do you think from Mike and Cheyenne? He says, I'm not cheering for staff movement. I'm focused on how this team can get better and what needs to be done to get there.
Well, the way they can get better is start winning games the rest of the season.
Well, sure, but if
they don't, that's number one. That's number one is win games starting on Saturday, right? Or next Saturday, whatever. I'm not thinking about 2 years down the road.
Yeah.
Yet, because that'll take care of itself if they suck the next few weeks.
It definitely will.
I don't know. I'm not worried. And again, I'm not worried. It's not me proffering some kind of a prediction of glory over the next few weeks because I feel like I don't know, but I'm confident that things change a lot more than people think they do.
So here's
the season.
And by the way, there are people that agree with you and appreciate your take.
It's good. I don't see sorry guys, I don't see the chat tonight. Long story.
Yeah,
I don't have my computer.
Jack's not reading the chat tonight.
Which probably, may be a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know.
I
guess I can look at it on my phone. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've mentioned now multiple times, and you've said this in the channels, you said this tonight, that like, hey, college football is weird. Anything can change. So where I think disagree with you on that, is Dylan is hurt. Dylan's ankle is hurt. He can't drive the football. The best thing that this offense theoretically has is his passing ability, and his passing ability is limited right now. The running game is a tire fire, and the wide receivers have been really struggling. So, I think that's where the whole, things can change. I can't get there for certainly this week. And I would say that the majority of the season now, I found myself now believing, Jack, 6 is most likely. I think 7 is certainly within the realm of happening. 8 is a dream. And certainly, 9 wins sounds impossible. Yeah. So that's how I am viewing the rest of the season. I'm not viewing this as man, they could really surprise us. I just don't see the offense being, I don't think it's capable anymore of being able to surprise us.
And so I don't know, not saying that you are wrong or anything, but I don't know what's true about Dylan for sure. Right. And is it I don't know.
I don't want to argue. This isn't directed at you. The guy was limping on Saturday. This is not a.
But do I know what he's going to be like on Black Friday? I mean, do you know what he's going to be like on Black Friday?
I was told it's going to linger for the rest of the season.
Okay. I mean, maybe.
Jack, it's been lingering for a month. He got hurt in mid-September now.
If it's a high ankle sprain, it'll take 6 weeks,
It's going to be a long time.
Okay. I'm not impugning your sources, but like, I don't feel like either of us are super confident we
No.
really know about.
I am.
Okay. All
I'm
right.
going off of the info that I had a month ago.
Well, that's the issue, by the way. If that's the big issue, that's not really the offensive coordinator if he's got no quarterback to work with. Right?
They still can't run the football. They've never been able to run the football. You know, they have an inability.
That's still a problem, but
yeah,
it does change the evaluation, does it not?
Well, then why do you and not to turn into run the ball guy, but if you know he's hurt, which they do, why do you have him drop back 44 times? And I know the answer again is because they can't run the football.
I've said it a million times in the Discord this week. Is I think you need to see more, especially if what you're saying is right and is affecting him this week and in weeks future, and you can't run the ball. You've got to have a quarterback run. That's a possibility. You have to
put in Harburg.
And I'm not necessarily even saying full time. I don't know what Dylan can do and can't do, but I think you've at least got to expand the use and have a quarterback run. That's the first thing you can do without changing your personnel to give you a better chance of having a better run game. And I don't know, 10, 15 plays during the course of the game is probably what I'm thinking that you should do. And I mean, did it ever look Indiana? It worked against Indiana for the most part, right?
He had 5 carries for 32 yards. That's pretty good.
And there was some at the end that was kind of
some at the end, but he came in and picked up a first down on his first run, didn't he? Or he picked up yards on his first run.
Yep, they ran that option play.
Yeah,
on his first one. Like that's the most obvious thing that you can do. And by the way, the offensive coordinator schemed a whole offense for that last year. So, it's there. And I think you've got to do that if the running game is going to be there, and if things are as bad with Dylan as it sounds like they might be. I don't know how far you have to go before you actually make the switch. Maybe that's eventually what you have to do, Josh. We'll have to see what Dylan looks like. If he ever, to this point, he hasn't looked. I mean, has he looked anything like it? Can you think of any time since the injury where he's looked like himself?
No.
At some point, you got to think about making the switch then.
Yeah,
it's not that I want it. It's not that I'm being romantic about Kearney, Nebraska, just to avoid that. But at some point, you just got to make the switch if the guy's too injured to do anything.
Yeah, and I'm not someone, because there's a conversation that's happening right now, Jack, in the chat about why didn't anyone ask him. So Adam says, why doesn't the staff address the injury? Wouldn't that take some pressure off of Dylan Raiola? And so I was surprised that nobody asked the question about it on Monday, like a direct question, because the best part about this injury is that he was limping in the first half. He got up slow and he was struggling on his ankle. So I know that. Yeah. Yes, I know that part of my intel here is sourced. So I have some of, and again, go to the Inside Info channel, because this stuff for us goes back to September when we were talking about it inside of the I-80 Club. So I heard about it in practice when there was this huge scare and everything ended up being okay. But then he apparently, so after Saturday, I talked to some folks. What I heard was that he re-injured it in the Rutgers game, and then obviously that whatever happened, it flared up a little bit more in the Indiana game. And Dave Fight points out, I'm 99% rule said that Dylan's fine. He did, but there was not a question about Dylan. That was about somebody else. I don't remember, Jack, and maybe you do. It was a question about the injury that another person had, and he said blah, 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 blah. What was that?
Was this on this Monday?
It was on Monday. And so I don't remember who it was, but he basically was like, such and such is fine. And then he was like, and Dylan's fine. And then he just kept on going. But there was never so I don't like doing, backseat, question asking for a press conference. But I was a little shocked that there wasn't any, hey, he had that play where he got up really slow. His passes were sailing. Can he drive off of his foot right now or anything? I mean, you don't even have to go that far, but
yeah. I mean, I think the obvious answer is that, well, I don't know why they're not asking it, but it may be because they know they're not going to get an answer. That he's
but you could ask him, how's he doing? He was limping.
They obviously don't want to let on that he's hurt, but at some point.
DC, he mentioned Dylan was fine unprompted. Yeah. Me thinks the coach doth protest a bit too much if he brought it up without even being asked about it.
So I understand that and I don't disagree with you. If you lose your best player on the offense, it's going to be harder to turn things around, right? But on the other hand, that takes a little bit of the onus of the critique off the offensive coordinator a little bit, right? Unless they just don't make a switch or something. It's going to be incredibly difficult, right? If you don't have your quarterback.
Sure. Yeah, we
So,
saw it last year. They had to completely alter their offense.
So, like, I mean, if you're playing with an injured quarterback, I don't know who the issue is, right? I don't know if it's your offensive coordinator or the people who keep putting an injured quarterback out there who can't play.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
if that's what happens.
Yeah, and I hate becoming run the ball guy because I know that it frustrates both of us. But I mean, one of the sins of this season ultimately is like that they couldn't run the ball from the start. And so if there is an injury to your quarterback who is already immobile, and then you can't fall back on the run.
The running game has sucked. I mean, I'm not here to deny that. After they went against some really bad rushing defenses, it's been really bad. It's been like shocking.
So that can still be an original sin of Satterfield is basically what I was trying to say.
Yeah, I guess so.
And somebody posted it a few minutes ago that Rule seemed really frustrated by Satterfield. I wish I could find it. But, here it is. Husker Huss says, I tend to believe that behind closed doors, Rule is frustrated with Sat. He specifically said their game plan was run hard against Indiana. 6 of the first 7 are passes. How can he not be frustrated when he really watches tapes and evaluate? And then Satterfield had the quote yesterday, not the one about 4 to 6 yards, but the one about, like, I got to get used to whatever it was. I got to get used to Big Ten football or something like that. Do you remember that quote that he had in there? It's funny. I actually might have the video if we wanted to air it, but yeah. So.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's true. I still have the belief that truly deep down in the cockles of his heart, Matt Rule wants to be a Big Ten West running team.
100%. And so does his OC want that too,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But let me ask you this question. Like, if that's true, and or if what you said about Satterfield's resume, and here we are now. I made my complaint about talking about Satterfield. We've talked about him for whatever.
For the whole time.
The whole show. But if what you said is true, like his resume isn't impressive, it's not looked good, like, why did he hire him?
Great question.
Right? Like, do we think that little of Rule that he's just making a obviously dumb decision at offensive freaking coordinator because of, I don't know, loyalty or whatever it is? Like, I don't know. That, like, it's hard for me to get past that.
Hard to you to get past it from what perspective?
In just accepting the premise that Satterfield was a bad hire.
Well, it's so funny of all the nights for you to not be able to read the chat. It's really funny just because of all the debates and conversations, because that is something that somebody, people have been opining about of like, if we can't trust him to make this hire and other coaches have been in there as well. It's like, how much can you trust the guy to begin with?
It's just
somebody pointed out earlier, two coaches have already had to resign or get fired because of off-field concerns. And so, now I'm not to get political. There's a commercial that is airing right now about one of the candidates in my district that hired, people. And it's like, that person hired these people. How can you trust this person to lead? Right. I remember we discussed it, I think, after the Cooper stuff. And I certainly think we did after the Wager stuff. I know when Mike Riley was around and Keith Williams got in trouble for the DUI, the third DUI, right? That's what it was. A lot of people had opinions about that. Like, you hired that guy. That is on you. It's not just on the person, but it's also on the person who's making the hiring. So to answer your question, I think a lot of people use that and they're like, exactly, Jack. That's why I don't trust the program right now, because
the whole program
questioning all of these coaches and all of these things, and it ultimately, comes back to the head man himself.
He just for no reason, made just a completely dumbass hire at offensive coordinator. Just a complete what an idiot. Just a complete terrible hire. Didn't even check the resume or think about it. Just
Jack, that's the thing.
Dude doesn't know what he's doing. Like, I don't get. Okay,
but Jack, he does know his resume. Isn't that the wild part? He coached.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
he coached under him.
Then he just did it to give going into this job that he's just got to succeed in for his legacy, for everything else. And he's like, let's do a favor to Satterfield here. Let's make him.
That's not. No, it's worse than that, Jack. They're not saying let's hire the guy to do him a favor. They're saying he's bad at identifying good coaches. That he's bad at identifying.
That he thought he
OC.
was good, even though Michael and everyone else can see that he's terrible. Rule couldn't see that.
I mean, I don't know. What are you arguing right now, man? His production at every stop as OC has always been average to below average.
You're telling me Rule couldn't see that?
I don't.
The argument, at least.
I guess so. What am I? What am I?
But
missing?
all the other plebes can see it, and Rule couldn't.
Jack, do you need me to just give you the numbers? I don't know what you want.
I don't want the numbers. I want to understand your argument that Rule is just so bereft of any kind of football judgment that he could not see what everyone else saw.
Well, I'm not saying he's bereft of any football judgment. I'm just saying
that's the argument that you're at least setting up that others are making.
Yes, that's what they're making.
Yeah, I'm just saying I don't buy it.
Okay.
I don't buy that he's just that everyone else is just looking at his offense and sees Satterfield's resume and it's a mess, and Rule just either was unable to do that, was not smart enough about football. I don't buy it. I don't know why he did it, but
how do you explain it then?
My explanation is I'm not decided that he sucks yet.
Okay.
I already told you. I've made my argument. Ask me at the end of the year.
So let's game this out. 5 games from now, we have this conversation. They fire him. He sucks. In that moment, what do you what is the answer on why he did this why he hired him to begin with?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking. I don't know.
Adam says, let's call it what it is.
Yeah, I guess we just all, I guess it was a lot of smoke and mirrors in the past with Rule and his football judgment, right?
Well, okay, so there's a couple ones in here that I think are good. NU1 says, I think they all misread this program and the Big Ten. Is there a world where, look, Satterfield's numbers are what Satterfield's numbers are.
Second coach in a row. Jeez.
I know.
If that's
it
true.
Happens, though. Hey, it happens.
Yeah. Yeah, it's frustrating. I'm just saying if that's true, that's essentially what happened with Frost too,
Yeah, well, I would say it's happened with literally everybody, Bo Pelini even. He changed his defense because he felt like he had to, and I don't think he did. What do you think about, now, you're going to hate this, but Adam says, let's call it what it is. He doesn't need to succeed here. Guaranteed $75 million.
Maybe that's it.
They fighting the good fight. Rule played in the Big Ten. He did, but man, how long ago was that? Bo played in the Big Ten too. Yeah, for sure. But how long ago was that compared to the era of the Big Ten that they were coaching?
It's crazy. It's just crazy. People just turn and be like, he's probably just a complete idiot.
No,
and knows less than me about
Come on,
football.
Man. Come on.
People will do it. People will do it, Josh.
No one is saying
I'm not saying you're doing that, but people will do that.
No one is saying in the I-80 club right now, no one is saying he doesn't know football. They are saying, I don't understand him hiring Marcus Satterfield.
They're just saying they know more about football than he does.
No, see, why do you always do that? Why can't you just take the commentary at its merits of guys, that is interesting. You presented me all this information, and he has actually been a subpar offensive coordinator at every stop. That is very interesting. Why would he hire him? And it's not because we think he's an idiot. I don't know why he hired him.
I don't know either. I don't have the answer either. But the place I do not go is that he just didn't know any better, right?
Yes, correct.
That's not the place I go.
None of us are saying that, though. None of us are in here having I feel like you're arguing with somebody that is. I don't know who this person is. Who are you arguing with?
All right, maybe nobody. Maybe we'll see. If that person is not coming out in the next few weeks, I will be shocked. But I hate arguing against straw men. So if you're telling me that's what I'm doing,
I think you are.
I will pull back.
And hey, look, there are these people that exist, probably. I don't want to engage with somebody who says, I know more about football than Matt Rule. Go pound sand. Dude, you're a moron.
I mean, everybody said that. Okay.
But I don't listen to those people. I ignore idiots who tell me that they know more than the head coach of Nebraska football.
Or the offensive coordinator?
Sure. I don't think I know more than the offensive coordinator. I do know that 4 to 6 yards per play isn't very good, and saying that was stupid. But that doesn't mean that I know more about football. Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
All right. If I'm arguing against straw men, I will quit. If they're not there, then great. Then that's great. Because I think all I detest all the straw man arguments that way. That's how I started this entire thing.
I know. I think you're making one though. You're saying,
Josh. I said if I am. Look, I don't know what to do. I'm saying if I am, okay, fair enough. I said I'll call off the dogs on that thing if nobody's saying that. We'll see. We'll see if that continues to be true.
Mike and Cheyenne says it is possible that Sat was good for Rule at other spots and he thought it would work again, but he won't/can't adjust. So Rule just trusted that Sat would figure it out, but maybe he can't. Keena says, I'll circle back to what I said above. I think guys like Rule look more for character and ability to fit into what he wants to do than track record.
Maybe.
I think that is definitely the case.
I don't know, man. You know, it's interesting, though. Here, I'll say this. Like, I go back to I watched the Chasing 3 from the Colorado game like three times. That's how happy I was after that. Remember that time? Seems like a long time ago. But I have I can
happier era.
I can quote parts of it. But do you remember the part of that Chasing 3 where they were in the locker room before the game and they showed Satterfield's speech and then they showed Tony White's speech right after it?
Mm-hmm.
And it was like one was playing checkers and one was playing chess in terms of the motivational factor between those two.
Yeah.
And it was Satterfield who was playing checkers.
Yep. I've always felt that. I don't think I've ever said this publicly. I never come away from any of his press conferences feeling that I'm educated. Never.
Yeah.
Or motivated.
I mean, Tony, like to overlay them one after the other. And then the funny thing is Tony White did his and you could hear Satterfield's in the background while it was happening. If people remember actually watching that, like that was interesting to me when you actually saw that. And I only bring that up because it felt like, you know, maybe Keena's right, but like, I feel like if Rule were to hire someone kind of on that basis, it would be because they are a master motivator, right? Like they are cut from the cloth that he is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like Satterfield really is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He doesn't. I mean, Rule is a communicator, man. He is a motivator. He is thinking about that stuff all the time. Satterfield doesn't come off that way to me at all.
No,
so
he definitely does not.
Yeah, like that doesn't. And I'm not saying that's what the offensive coordinator has to be, but you know that would be one thing if Rule hired him because he just was bought into that kind of thing so much like Rule did. But I don't think he does.
Yeah, Keena says that's a good point. Sat does not have the mojo. He definitely does not.
No, he doesn't. No. And there are plenty of coaches, good coordinators, I'm sure, who don't. So
yeah, for sure.
But that's one thing I've noticed about him.
So now Jack is out on Satterfield. Yeah, you've retroactively now talked yourself into being out on him.
Let me see the end of the season. But it will be interesting, Josh, if Dylan's injury is like something that very clearly everybody realizes is affecting the team and the offense. What happens after that? Because that kind of changes the narrative. It just kind of changes the whole narrative.
Yeah. When we talked to Doug last night and he brought up like how excited people are to watch Dylan, I couldn't help but think, man, you're not getting his best. You're not getting the best Dylan though. So like this kind of sucks.
It completely sucks.
Yeah, exactly.
It completely sucks. In some ways, it makes me feel a little better if it's true, just because it explains some things also, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That seem completely incomprehensible. Unfortunately, it doesn't explain whatever happened to the defense on Saturday, because that is more incomprehensible still than anything.
Dude, another show now that I've done this week. So, you know, I've done 3 radio shows. You and I did the post-game pod. We're talking again now. And offense continues to dominate the conversation. And I think rightfully so, but it really is interesting given that the defense gave up 56 points.
It was the more shocking. It was by far the more shocking thing of the game.
Yes. If I would have told you before the game, what's more likely, the offense scores 7 or the defense gives up 56, you would have said the offense scores 7.
1,000,000 times.
You know,
more.
It's just that both of them happen in the same time.
100%.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer, right? Like, I don't have an answer. The best answer I can give you, Josh, is that they came out on, well, 2 things. I have 2 answers. Number one, I feel like that whole team came out flat. Like I said this on Saturday, it felt like Indiana had a chip on their shoulder from the beginning and Nebraska didn't. Indiana came out like Nebraska did against Colorado. And I can't fathom that that's the case. If anything, with the Matt Rule team, like that they were unable to have a mental edge going into that game. And then number 2 is there's one kryptonite for this defense, perhaps.
Yep.
And unfortunately, it's a big one, and that is offenses that can both run and pass the ball very well.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is probably the case for most any defense. I understand.
And certainly RPOs, quarterback that can scoot a little bit is going to cause a big problem.
But if it's one or the other and you don't do the second one better, this defense will dominate you.
100%. And that's why, I will, when I start looking ahead to the rest of the year and gamifying things out, I think this week is going to be rough. Hey, reminder, post-game show coming up on Saturday night at 8 o'clock. I think this week's going to be rough. They'll get put in a blender a little bit, though I don't think the margin of victory is going to be as bad as it was last week. But then after that, USC has its own issues. UCLA is bad. Iowa and Wisconsin's offense, honestly, Wisconsin's kind of finding a little bit. But at least those offenses and how they play match up better for Nebraska than, Indiana or Ohio State.
The two offenses that have given them problems had legit, although Illinois' running game was better than it should have been against Nebraska, to be honest. Indiana's got a more legit running game, I still think, than Illinois does. But nonetheless, yeah, I don't know if any of those teams, if UCLA, I don't think Iowa has a balanced enough offensive attack to create those problems. I hope. I'm not sure about the other three teams, to be honest, right? If Nebraska can key on one or the other, that seems like that's what's been productive for them. Not only productive for them, they've been dominant, right? They were the number one SP plus defense coming into that game. Number one.
Yeah.
In the country.
Which is so interesting. When I saw that, I was like, wow, that's not what I would have expected, just given,
well, you give up 7 points 2 weeks in a row.
I know, but it goes beyond just points per game. It's opponent based and all those things. And given how they played versus Illinois, I think they're a top 15 defense. I definitely did not think that they were the number one defense in the country. And yet 56 points is still flabbergasting.
I'm just so freaking heartbroken that this defense isn't what I thought it was.
Yeah.
That was such an exciting concept. Remember, Josh, when we were at how many podcasts in a row am I going to go back and talk about halftime of the Colorado game?
GOAT.
It's
the best pod we've ever done.
It's like going back with your spouse and talking about your first date and how magical it was or something like that. But do you remember at the end, I was like, Josh, is this defensive line elite? Right?
Yep.
Or is this defense elite? I can't remember what I said exactly.
I think, Jack, I'm going to pull up the podcast titles, but I am fairly confident that the podcast around that game, one of the podcasts that we did right after that game was, are the black shirts elite?
Yeah.
And it was basically trying to figure out what does that mean for the rest of the season moving forward?
Instead of talking about Satterfield for a while, can we just mourn
Let's bury them. Let's bury the defense.
Can we just mourn the fact that they are not what for a while I really thought they were, which was what a great true black shirt, shut them down defense, whatever the offense is, it doesn't matter. They're going to have a shot to win games, just causing havoc everywhere in the backfield, crazy sacks. Ty Robinson is a monster, right? That can't be stopped. Jamari Butler is going to rack up huge sacks. James Williams is a track star off the corner. He's never going to be stopped. Bullock is going to be an all Big Ten first team linebacker, just making plays every single freaking game. The secondary has 8 guys who could play, right? And a few of them in the NFL. I want to mourn a little bit the fact that dream was kind of blown up on Saturday, because I bought into it. I believed it was going to continue on Saturday. I don't understand why it didn't happen, but I think that was the ticket to the Matt Rule experience really being exactly what we hoped it would be.
Yeah, so the title of the pod that Sunday, because remember we recorded the next day, is Nebraska's defense elite. Nebraska's 2-0, and that was it. Inside of the body of the pod, we were like the good and the bad from the offense, the elite ? Defense, and viewing the 2024 schedule. The other thing, Jack, coming out of that one was obviously, oh man, they're not going to see a quarterback this good the rest of the year, and they just shut this dude freaking down. What are they going to do to all the other quarterbacks? And for a variety of reasons, that of course is not. Altmaier put the defense in a blender at times. The scheme put them in a blender, and we saw what happened on Saturday. They were on skates. That was, that was up there in terms of real bad defensive performances that I've watched over the last 20 years. I know Mitch Sherman compared the game overall to the 70-10 loss to Texas Tech. you know?
I did
and
too.
while I see that, I feel like that game was more built off of dumb turnovers late. It wasn't that bad going into the half, if I remember right. Whereas this game, it was just the defense can't stop them. Every possession Indiana has the ball, they go right down the field. And the corners were lining up so far back off of their receivers,
gosh.
and they're getting 8 to 10
They're throwing
yards
just
every
these
day.
out patterns.
Oh
God, that cushion.
Yeah.
I know. That's one of my airing of grievances. Like, geez, just play. You've got good cornerbacks, right? I mean, geez.
Yeah, I thought so.
You've got really good cornerbacks. You've got good safeties. You got why are we playing scared with that defensive backfield? Like, I don't get it. I wish I did know X's and O's. I really actually want to rewatch that game and watch the defense again and try and figure out what in the crap happened. I didn't expect him to shut him down, but obviously I didn't expect that.
Yeah, I picked 31 points for Indiana. So, I thought they'd move the ball and I thought they would score to do what they did, where, again, every drive felt like it was easy. And you just worry, man. Like, and Doug mentioned it last night with us, that Ohio State, it seems like they're in a really interesting spot mentally right now. The fan base is in an interesting spot. And
they always are.
I know, but
they're like Nebraska in some ways.
I just can't help but think like, oh, cool. Like, they need a get-right game. Welcome to Columbus, Ohio, Nebraska. Man. Have fun with this team as they're all mad and angry.
Right. I mean, imagine Nebraska had lost, the offense was what it was, but Nebraska had lost like 17-9 or something against Indiana, right? And the defense still showed out, but they lost the game. Like, you'd be going into this game being like, well, who knows, right? The defense pitches a near shutout. Who knows what, or gets a turnover and score. Who knows what happens? And we're not, obviously not saying those things now. It's just, it sucks. I'm so deeply disappointed that it doesn't seem like the defense was what I really believed that it was, and really hoped it was, and wanted to believe that it was. And just, yeah, it's too bad, man. I saw a few of those players and I was like, they're going to be really, I believed in all those guys in Bullock and Robinson and Gifford, right? And Sierra Wright and all those guys. I mean, I really believed. I still can't believe it. And hopefully it was a one-off fluke, right? Josh, maybe that is where, you were showing some skepticism that my theory that if you think something in college football, it's going to change. And you were talking about the offense, talking about the injury. Maybe that was the defense, right? Maybe that was,
I think the defense will be fine.
The exceptional thing. And maybe we're going to see, the Purdue defense, the Rutgers defense, the Colorado defense again a few times this year. It sure be nice.
Well, in terms of the opponents that they'll play, they definitely can get to that level a few more times this year. They're not going to play a team like Indiana. Now, it sucks. They're playing Indiana this week, so like they literally are playing one of those teams. But beyond that, they're not going to play a team, Lincoln Riley's a really good coach in terms of being an offensive mind, but that program seems like it's caught up in its feels right now too. So I think they're going to get another win. I think I would probably bet most likely on them going 6-6, but 7-5 is certainly there. I don't think that we're going to have fun anymore this year. Like, I feel like the air, like, you want to talk about mourning something, Jack. It's like having a good time. I think that we are done having a good time. That's the name of the podcast tonight. We are done having a good time.
And that's really what we're chasing, right? As fans.
Yeah.
We're not chasing a number on a record. We are chasing that feeling at halftime of that Colorado game, which we're getting maybe exactly once this year.
Yeah,
if your prediction is true.
I mean, I thought the UTEP game was fun as hell, and the Colorado game was awesome, but ever since
that's
then,
it,
I mean,
right?
Yeah, I would say that's it. Nothing else. Northern Iowa, everyone was so annoyed in that game, even though they only gave up 3 points and the offense.
I was as critical as anyone after that game. So, I don't know what scenario there is where, obviously, if you go in and you, right, you just start winning some of those last 4 games, right? You win 3 out of 4 or something.
Yeah, Adam says gutting out a win versus Wisconsin will be a good time, no matter how shitty the game is. Yeah, beating Iowa, beating Wisconsin.
If you could beat both Iowa and Wisconsin, right? I mean, yeah.
Dave, this is depressing as fuck. Yes, it is, Dave.
Yeah. I'm not ready, and I'm not ready to close the book. That Josh said that. I'm not totally ready to close the book on that either.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting now because you and
like,
I think we were in alignment on a lot of stuff. We are no longer in agreement on stuff. We are on the opposite ends of the 2024 Nebraska season.
My position is I don't know. I think things change, so I don't know.
So that like I said, we're in disagreement. I feel like I know. Okay. I feel very confident in things moving forward. And I don't think
you feel really confident it's going to be one more win, UCLA, and that's it, right?
One or two. I definitely don't think they can win 3 out of the last 4, like you just said. What if they did that? No way. You want to talk about an all-time miss by me? That would be an all-time miss. It'd be fun, but it would be. I just don't. Again, not to do the Satterfield of it all. I just don't know how the offense is going to find enough points, and I think the defense is.
Do you think? No, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good. I think the defense is good. I just don't think that they are good enough. And like we saw it last year, the defense was awesome. And I know they had their own brain farts. They gave up in the last 4 games, it was like 20, 17, 13, 13 or whatever, and they went 0-4. I don't think the defense is that good, and I think the offenses they're playing this time are actually going to be better than they were in the last 4 games.
Do you think, though, if they beat UCLA and Iowa or Wisconsin, it would feel that dark?
No, if they do that, but I don't think they're going to do that.
Well, you said 1 or maybe 2, so that's what I assumed the 2.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, you're right. If they beat Wisconsin,
you said 1, so I assume UCLA is the 1, and the 2 is either Iowa. I guess could be USC too, but I think you're probably thinking. I don't know what you're thinking. Most likely, like I don't know how.
Wisconsin.
Like that's sort of the top of where I think they'll probably end up too. Like when we were talking about that poll in the Football Channel today, like I said, I would consider 7-5 a success at this point.
Yeah, I guess so. Maybe as we talk this out, I think that shows my answer of I think that actually 6-6 is probably like the most likely, and maybe 7-5 is even harder to come by than I imagine it to be.
Okay. So here's the scenario: beat UCLA, lose out the next 3, and then you got your bowl, right?
You got a bowl game,
and then like
what the hell's the mood like around here for that? What's the mood like
weird.
For that?
It'll be weird. It'll be mixed, but it'll be weird, especially losses, and especially if they're freaking gut wrenching. Yeah, to those 3, it'll be bad. You're right. It'll be bad. It'll be low confidence. It'll be low interest going into that bowl from a lot of people.
Because they're playing in one of those dumb cold bowl games.
It'll be pinstripe or whatever. I don't even know.
And look, I'm the guy who has said for years, like, you just got to get to a bowl game. But Matt says it, finishing 1-5 down the stretch, woof. Like, it will be hard to sell progress when progress is 6-6 and finishing 1-5 with a 3-game losing streak.
Yeah.
You got to find a way, Jack. Honestly,
it's just, man,
honestly, you got to find a way to get multiple wins. I think as we, talk this out right now, maybe more than ever, I'm realizing they got to find at least 2. They got to figure out a way to get to 7 because that guarantees you're above 500. Because if you're 6-6 and you lose the bowl, you're actually sub 500 again. So it guarantees you're above 500. It guarantees you don't finish 0-3. I guess barring a total shocker on Saturday where they beat Ohio State.
Right.
So like it guarantees some things.
And you probably get one of your 2 biggest rivals.
You either get one of your 2 biggest rivals or you win on the road at USC, which say what you will about that program right now, but that would feel pretty good.
That's a freaking crazy scenario. Beat UCLA and USC and then lose the next.
And lose out. Yeah.
Well, I don't even know what that would be.
Yeah.
Well, like you're confident about it. I'm not willing to give up. I'm being the fan. I'm not willing to give up that hope. I'm not willing to give up the hope of 3 out of those last 4. Like I'm still holding on to that possibility. I don't know what it looks like. You know what? I do think I know what it looks like. It's the defense coming back to reality, right?
Yeah,
it's the defense coming back and leading those wins and the offense doing just enough in those games, which frankly, in 2 of those games, that's probably going to work. So we'll see. We will see, but I'm not ready, man. I'm not. It's not even freaking Halloween. Like we have got to. These seasons cannot be this no damn fun every year, where it's just a death march through the month of November. I mean, I just like at some point it's got to change. It like honestly, there's a part of me that's just like freaking law of averages. It's got to change at some point. Something's got to go right.
Yeah,
and I don't know. We'll see. Maybe it's this year. Maybe it's Saturday. Maybe it's Saturday, Josh.
Maybe it's Saturday.
Maybe it's Saturday. That'll change some tunes. That'll change your tune pretty quick.
Don't do Jack. Don't do this to yourself.
I mean, You know, you heard what Lamourie said, right? He said things that crowd will turn on their own team really quick. It's like in the Soviet Union when the Soviets all turned on Ivan Drago, right? And they started chanting Rocky. Could happen. It could happen at Ohio State.
Oh, Matt says Saturday. Interesting. Marcus Saturday.
Oh, Heinrich Harburg just dropped 200 yards of rushing on Ohio State. Weird.
Well, it will be interesting at the very least.
Not giving up. Don't take away my hope. Do not take away my hope with football season almost barely halfway over, Josh.
I know.
Don't take it away from me.
Yeah, we'll still talk about it. No matter what happens, we'll be here for you. Saturday, we get the Saturday morning coffee show. We're on at 9:30 live on YouTube. That is paywalled only for you. We'd love to have you join us. Suck it,
non-paying members.
To those of you who are watching this for free or listening for free, and you're still here at the end, we would love to have you join us at patreon.com/IDClub. Jack, I was texting with somebody today just about football season and how work has been going this year. And I mentioned been really throwing a lot of my time and effort into pushing hard for I-80 Club growth. This person said, y'all are doing a lot. Hope it is paying off. It is, but we would love to have more people join us. So and subscribe to the YouTube page and certainly hit up the Patreon and join us if you can.
We get it. There are media entities out there on YouTube in the podcast world. There are fan entities out there in all those places as well. It's a crowded area. Yeah. But I hope tonight shows you why we're different than all of those. I think, right? It's a different, hopefully it's more entertaining, number one, I think it is, than a lot of the stuff that's out there. But it's a little bit of both of those worlds. And hopefully you saw that tonight. This was a fun pot. This was as productive of discussion. Maybe it's because I wasn't looking at the chat, Josh. Honestly.
Oh, come on. That is unreal. Hey, subscribe because you can chat with us during the show, but Jack doesn't want to read your comments. I'm
just saying, I thought that was a very productive discussion between me and you tonight, even though we didn't end up with the same thing.
Even when you were being very straw man, even that part of the pod, that was really interesting.
And I relented, right? You made a point. Sure. You made a point, and I said you might be making a good point here. I will relent.
Yeah.
Right?
Matt says Jack missed a lot of triggering D-Lo comments. Yeah, there was one time I think D-Lo just said, Jack, you suck, after he found out that you were not reading the chat. He goes, oh, really? Jack, you suck. It was pretty funny.
I think we found out why
you had a great time?
I had such a great time tonight.
Interesting.
It was great.
Adam, Jack's going to go back and anger himself by reading the chat.
Nope.
That'll
Definitely
be great.
Not.
Well,
Definitely
anyway.
I will have it back next week. Don't worry. I'm not turning it off. As I told Josh, it's been a long night and I did not have access to my computer because it was in my car, which my wife had, because when she backed out, I left the recycle bin out and she knocked her rear view mirror off the driver's side. Was very unhappy with me. This all happened about 3 minutes before the podcast.
And wait, what does that have to do with your computer being in there? Why was the computer in the car?
So she was my computer was in my car because I took it tonight with me when my daughter rides horses. I was working on at the coffee shop, getting ready for the show and stuff. Yeah. And I just forgot to take it out of my car. Normally I would have been able to just walk back up and get it out of my car, but she had taken my car. So it's here now. I could get it now, but we started the show and my dog rolled in a whole bunch of dog poop. And it's just the 20 minutes before the show started were as chaotic, family wise, as you could ever freaking imagine. So again, glad we made it through.
We had a great time. So join us. Somebody said a few moments ago, we like the pod because Jack is an actual fan. There you go. Yeah, Huss. None of the other media entities have a true fan like Jack, which is why it's worth it. Hell yes. Adam says, LOL, let's hear more of Jack's miserable night. You know what? If this was an off-season pod, we would have had 30 minutes on that alone. But sadly, we had to talk about Marcus Satterfield. And if he runs the ball enough for our
starts out me saying I'm tired, I'm bored of Marcus Satterfield, and then 50 minutes of Satterfield talk. Yeah. Awesome.
I think it's great to talk about. I think it's super interesting.
Can't wait for the next 2 months.
Yep, it's going to be. Hey, we're going to have a great time, and what's going to happen is we're going to be here for all of it. Saturday morning coffee show, patrons only. Saturday night or ID Club after dark, 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock?
Oh, boy. We recap what happens. Speaking of 8 o'clock, the next Saturday will be a little later. I have overreaction duty, so time TBD on that for the UCLA show, but we'll have that news for you at a later date. A reminder, next week, Kemp Pavelka, that interview will drop on Tuesday at 11 a.m. The Kemp Pavelka pod will drop. Jack and I next Wednesday as well. And then the Nebraska ball brunch show. We unveiled all the logos and stuff. I know everybody loves the basketball.
It's Brask E-ball.
Brask E-ball. Thank you, Jack. We are looking into doing some really cool merch with it. So just stay tuned for that. We will at a certain point we will have that. But I know many people love the basketball that I just posted inside of the Discord server. It's our new little mascot.
Yes, his name is Brask E, middle initial, ball.
Somebody in our boardroom earlier photoshopped the basketball that he is spinning as the Orange Bowl logo that Jack wants to get tattooed of it on himself, and then said, "Can they kiss?" And I laughed very hard. Can the basketball and the orange kiss?
Sam said, "Can they kiss?" in the boardroom, and I said, "Interested."
Yeah, indeed. We all are. So
don't kink shame.
That stuff all starts next week, and then the first post-game show with Jack and Caleb and Bigelow will be the following Monday. We're going to have a great time. This is going to be a fun season until Nebraska gets off to a horrible start and loses to Creighton by 30, and then we're probably going to cancel everything. But until then, it's going to be so much fun, Jack.
And Josh will give up hope, and I'll keep hope.
Hey, me giving up hope on Nebraska basketball? Yeah, I think I've already done that. All right, we are back on Saturday morning. Let's see what happens. Until then, we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Why is it working?